Did you know that 50% of the world's population is secretly preparing to create a new currency to challenge the dominance of the dollar? While you're busy with your daily life, the biggest financial revolution of the 21st century is unfolding right before your eyes. Listen up. Today, I'm going to reveal a truth that Western media corporations are desperately trying to hide. Brics, the bloc of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, isn't just an economic alliance. They're building an entirely new financial system with their own currency that could end the 70-year reign of the US dollar. You think this is just big country politics that doesn't affect you? Wrong. When Brics currency launches, it will completely transform how the world operates. Gas prices, gold prices, housing prices, even the money in your bank account, everything will be directly impacted. After hearing what I'm about to share, you'll understand why Western elites are panicking, why they're escalating tensions with Russia and China, and most importantly, how you can prepare for this massive shift. This isn't conspiracy theory. These are real events happening right now. Before talking about Brics currency, we need to understand that America's most powerful weapon isn't the military, but the dollar itself. This is the truth they never teach you in school. In 1944 at Bretton Woods, nations agreed to use the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Back then, the dollar was backed by gold. Every $35 could be exchanged for 1 ounce of gold. Sounds fair, right? But that was just the opening act. In 1971, President Nixon did something that few noticed but completely changed history. He abolished the gold standard. From that moment, the dollar was no longer backed by anything. But instead of collapsing, America created an even smarter deal. The petrodollar, that's the ultimate weapon. America convinced Saudi Arabia and OPEC nations to sell oil only in dollars. This meant any country wanting to buy oil, essential for modern economies, had to have dollars. They forced the entire world to need dollars. See how clever that is? Instead of backing the dollar with gold, they backed it with global demand. Every time a country needs to buy oil, machinery, or even trade with each other, they have to go through the American banking system, follow American laws. This is why America can print money without worrying about inflation like other countries. When they print $1 trillion, the entire world bears the inflationary consequences, while America reaps the benefits. That's global inflation tax, the most sophisticated form of robbery in human history. But that era is about to end. Brics has seen this game and decided they're not playing anymore. Brics didn't emerge by chance. This is the result of decades of exploitation and manipulation by the Western financial system. The story begins in 2008, when America's financial crisis spread worldwide. That's when emerging nations like China, Russia, and India realized a bitter truth. They were severely affected by a crisis they didn't cause, simply because they depended on the dollar system. China, the manufacturing hub for the entire world, had to accept printed American dollars in exchange for real goods. Russia, the world's largest energy exporter, was forced to sell oil and gas for dollars, then deposit that money in American banks. India, with over 1.4 billion people, had to accept the rules of the SWIFT system controlled by America. The real breaking point was the sanctions. Whenever America disliked a country, they could simply cut SWIFT connections, freeze dollar assets, and that nation would be isolated from the global financial system. Iran, Russia, Venezuela, all have tasted this medicine. In 2022, when Russia was sanctioned and hundreds of billions in dollar reserves were frozen, this was the wake-up call for all nations. They realized that holding dollars in reserves was no different from putting their country's fate in Washington's hands. From then on, Brics began acting decisively. China and Russia signed agreements to trade in local currencies. India bought Russian oil with rupees. Brazil and Argentina discussed using a common South American currency. These weren't random moves. This was a systematic plan to break the dollar monopoly. And now they're ready for the final step, creating a common currency that could completely replace the dollar in international trade. Let me analyze in detail the Brics currency plan, the project that could change the world's financial order. Brics currency isn't a traditional currency. It's a basket of currencies backed by gold and real commodities. Instead of trusting empty government promises like the dollar, this currency has real value behind it. The tentative formula is 40% weight for Chinese yuan, 20% for Russian ruble, 15% for Indian rupee, 10% for Brazilian real, and 5% for South African rand. The remainder would be gold and other raw materials. What's smart about this? While the dollar only relies on faith in American military power, Brics currency is backed by things that truly have value: gold that Russia and China are heavily accumulating, oil and gas that Russia exports, raw materials that Brazil supplies, the massive production capacity of China and India. They're not just creating a new currency, but building an entire alternative financial infrastructure. China has CIPS, cross-border interbank payment system. Russia has SPFS. India has RuPay. When these systems connect, they'll have a payment network completely independent of SWIFT. Do you see the importance? When Brics currency launches, member countries can trade with each other without going through the American banking system, without fear of sanctions, without paying exorbitant transaction fees. This number will shock you. Brics currently accounts for 35% of global GDP and 42% of world population. If you include countries applying to join like Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Ethiopia, this number will exceed 50% of world GDP. What does this mean? It means most of the world's raw materials, energy, and industrial production will no longer depend on the dollar. When you want to buy oil from Russia, iron ore from Brazil, or electronics from China, you can use Brics currency instead of having to convert through dollars. The clearest benefit is saving transaction costs. Currently, when India buys from Russia, they have to rupee, dollar, ruble, losing at least 2 to 3% in conversion fees. With Brics currency, direct transactions will reduce costs to under 1%. But don't think this is easy. Creating a currency to replace the dollar faces enormous challenges that few dare mention. First is the liquidity issue. The dollar is strong because you can exchange dollars for anything, anywhere, anytime. For Brics currency to achieve this liquidity, it needs a massive financial market behind it. China and Russia still have strict capital controls. India and Brazil have underdeveloped financial systems. How do they create an open and transparent market like the dollar market? Second is the gold backing issue. If Brics currency is truly backed by gold, they need an enormous amount of gold. Currently, Brics countries' total gold reserves are about 4,000 tons, while global central bank gold reserves are 35,000 tons. Is that enough to back a global currency? The biggest issue is the difference in interests among member countries. China wants the yuan to play a dominant role. Russia wants to avoid sanctions. India worries about Chinese influence. Brazil and South Africa want a voice in decisions. How do you coordinate monetary policy among 5 countries with completely different political and economic systems? Who will decide to print more money when needed? Who will control inflation? Moreover, America and the West won't sit idle while Brics currency succeeds. They could create geopolitical tensions, impose new sanctions, even provoke conflicts to prevent this project. For a currency to become a global reserve, it needs wide acceptance. Currently, despite hating the dollar, nations still use it because they have no other choice. Brics currency needs time to build trust. Businesses, banks, governments must believe this currency is stable, valuable, and widely accepted. This process could take decades. When Brics currency emerges and develops, it will create profound changes that most people haven't realized. Currently, America can print money to buy real goods from around the world. When demand for holding dollars decreases, America will have to actually produce value to exchange for goods. This will be a major shock to the American economy. The Federal Reserve will no longer be able to print money without worrying about inflation. Inflation will return to America instead of spreading worldwide as before. American living standards could decline significantly. Countries with natural resources and real production capacity will have major advantages. Russia with oil and gas, Brazil with agriculture, China with manufacturing, India with services, they will strengthen considerably. Conversely, countries that only rely on financial services and strong currencies like Britain and some European countries will struggle. They'll have to find ways to create real value instead of just relying on financial advantages. Gold will rise sharply when it becomes backing for Brics currency. Raw materials and energy will also be more valuable because they're no longer discounted through dollar transactions. Conversely, U.S. government bonds, once considered the world's safest asset, may lose their appeal. When countries no longer have to hold dollars, they'll reduce purchases of U.S. bonds. For Americans, this is both opportunity and challenge. Positively, America could reduce dependence on artificial financial advantages and focus on real production and innovation. However, America also needs to prepare for volatility. The USD exchange rate could fluctuate wildly. American businesses need to diversify currency holdings. The banking system needs to prepare for transactions with new currencies. Think about John from Detroit who works at Ford. For decades, his job was secure because America could print dollars to buy steel from Brazil, oil from Saudi Arabia, and electronics from China. American companies like Apple could design products in California, manufacture them cheaply in China, and sell them worldwide for dollars that cost almost nothing to print. But when Brics currency gains traction, China might demand payment in Brics currency instead of dollars. Saudi Arabia might sell oil to China for yuan instead of dollars. Suddenly, John's company needs real value, better cars, innovative technology, competitive prices to compete globally. The free lunch is over. Consider Sarah, a financial advisor in New York. She's built her career helping wealthy clients invest in dollar-denominated assets, U.S. stocks, bonds, real estate. Her clients include Michael, a tech entrepreneur who sold his startup for $50 million, and Jennifer, who inherited a portfolio worth $20 million. When Brics currency emerges, these clients start asking tough questions. Should we diversify into gold? What about Chinese stocks? Is the dollar still safe? Sarah realizes the investment strategies that worked for 30 years might not work in a multipolar currency world. The biggest question is, how long can the dollar maintain its global reserve status? The most likely scenario is gradual decline of the dollar. Instead of sudden collapse, the dollar will slowly lose market share in global reserves from 60% currently to 30 or 40% in the next 10 to 15 years. Brics currency, yuan, euro, and gold will share the remainder. The world will shift from a unipolar to multipolar monetary system. America won't surrender easily. They could strengthen SWIFT system control, impose sanctions on countries using Brics currency, create geopolitical tensions to prevent Brics cooperation, or reform the financial system to maintain dollar attractiveness. If Brics currency succeeds, we'll witness reduced global inflation due to no more inflation export from America, increased economic stability from reduced dependence on U.S. monetary policy, more equitable redistribution of global wealth, and reduced ability for America to use the dollar as a geopolitical weapon. However, this transition won't be smooth. There will be periods of instability, currency crises, and economic conflicts. Financial markets will be highly volatile. Some countries may fall into recession while adapting to the new order. Now you understand the big picture. Brics currency isn't just an economic project, but a financial revolution that could change the global balance of power. The truth is, we're living in a historic moment. The Bretton Woods system has existed for 80 years, and now it's being seriously challenged for the first time. Whether Brics currency succeeds or not, the era of absolute dollar monopoly has begun to end. First, diversify your assets. Don't put all eggs in the dollar basket. Consider investing in gold, real estate, and assets with real value. Second, learn about emerging markets. China, India, Brazil will become increasingly important in the global economy. Understanding these countries will bring good investment opportunities. Third, prepare mentally for volatility. This transition won't be smooth. There will be periods of chaos, crisis, and opportunity. The current financial system is designed to serve a few people. Brics currency may not be perfect, but it brings hope for a fairer world where nations are no longer exploited through the monetary system. Whether you support or oppose it, this revolution is happening. What's important is that you understand clearly to make the right decisions for yourself and your family. If what I've shared is useful to you, please share it to help others wake up to the major changes ahead. Don't let them continue being deceived by biased information from mainstream media. The world is changing, and those who understand early will have major advantages. Are you ready for the future?